Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's lecture. And in today's lecture, we are going to be talking about introduction to Git and GitHub. So, over our past few classes, we've spoken about introduction to command line. We've also spoke about the basic command line that you should know as a beginner, and also we've talked about couple of other things also. But in today's video, we are going to be doing a beginner-friendly introduction to Git and GitHub. So without any further ado, let's get started with the video. All right, I can see you guys coming up already. Good morning. How are we all doing? All right, so today we are going to be talking about introduction to Git and GitHub, right? And basically, if you don't know what Git and GitHub is, don't worry. In today's video, you will get a sense of what it is and what it is used for. And basically, it's a version control that is used by developers just to control what they are doing in their files locally, right? So we are going to explain everything step by step. So if you are to make sure that you are ready to learn, and take your pen and book if you want to jot, just in case. All right, please, if the audio is clear, kindly confirm from the chat so that we can proceed. All right, so first is, what is Git, right? So what is Git? um Basically, Git is a free and open source version control system, right? So basically, if you don't know what version control system is, it's just something that helps you to control your file, right? So for example, if you say you created a file, for example, um, and you make changes to that file, right? So how about if you want to go back to the previous work that you did before making that change, right? So that's where Git comes in, right? Git helps you to track the process of what you are doing in a particular folder or in a particular file, right? And basically what it does here is it track changes in your code. So we're using code for example, right? All right, it's clear, very good. All right, good morning, everyone. And basically, it tracks the changes in your code. So let's say, for example, you started writing a Python code to add two numbers together, right? So you write a code to add two numbers together today, right? And let's say tomorrow, for some reason, you change that file to subtracting two numbers together, right? So if you want to go back to what you did yesterday, right? You might have pressed Control S, you might have closed your system and all of that, right? And basically, when you shut down your system and you turn it back on, right, you can't undo those changes because you shut down your system already. Those processes are no more saved again, right? So Git comes into handy that way, right? So what it does is, since you tracked your code using Git, then you can go back to the changes that you made yesterday, which is to add two numbers together, right? And it works as far as you have Git installed on your system, right? So if you made changes like last 2 years or last 3 years, basically, once you have Git on your system, you can still go back to what you've done before in the previous year, right? So that's why Git is very important, right? And basically everything is done locally on your system, so you have to download Git to be able to track what you are doing locally on your system, right? So another usefulness is it collaborates with others on the same project, right? So for example, if you are working on a large scale project and there are different developers that are working on different teams, what Git can help you to do is it can help you to collaborate with other developers, so that when a developer make changes here, you're going to see it that, okay, this change was done by this developer, right? And also, it also allows you to collaborate with developers in such a way that when you are working on your system, when you are performing a particular task, right, you can tell the developer that, okay, I'm working on this task, please don't touch this task, in order not to have conflict, right? So that way, Git is going to track that, okay, um, person A is working in this particular folder, with this particular file, and person B is working in this particular file A also, right? So you can use Git to merge those changes together, and basically you are going to be working on the same file without having any issue, right? So it allows you to collaborate with other developers, right? So another usefulness is it manage different versions of your project, right? So for example, you can actually work on a particular project that have version B, version A, right? And you can create another branch that has version B and still work on that same project. Do you understand? So basically, Git helps you to manage your work when you are writing codes, right? And don't worry, I'm going to give another scenario. And also, once we go along with the course, you're going to get to understand it very well. All right, good morning, you all. How are you all doing today? All right, so example, so let's say you accidentally delete or mess up your code, right? So like I said in the beginning that for example, if you make changes to your code, that's intentionally now, right? So let's say for example now, for some reason you accidentally delete a particular code in a particular file, right? Or you basically messed it up, right? So for example, yesterday the code was working fine, and the next day you just notice that when you woke up, you made some little changes, and for some reason, your code is no more working again, right? So if you want to go back to what you did the previous day, when that the code was working then Git would really help you doing that, all right? So you can see that with Git, you can go back to an earlier version and recover it. Like I mentioned earlier, that if you are working on a particular project, right? So let's say you saw a project online that was using version 1.0, and that tutorial project was done like 4 years ago, right? Obviously you would know that the version that that library is using today would have upgraded, right? So let's say 2022, right? It was using version 1.0, and 2025 is now using version 4.0, right? What you can do is, if you still have that version 4.0 currently installed when you are working, right? You can switch to another branch using Git, and you're going to go ahead to install the previous version of 2022 in another branch. So let's say you have branch A that has version 2022. You can also have branch B that have version 2025, right? And you're going to be working on different versions. So if you want to work on version 2025, what you can do is you can just go ahead to switch the branch, right? So that's one of the usefulness of Git. And basically, you are going to see as we go along with the course how to use Git and GitHub very well. All right. So if you are following me, kindly drop a yes in the comment section, and also give this video a thumbs up so that the YouTube algorithm can know we are doing a great job. All right. So let's continue. So next is, what is GitHub? Now, remember that I said that Git is used to track your file locally. Remember I said that, right? So now GitHub is now a platform to store and share your Git repositories online. All right. So whatever you are doing with Git only, you are doing it locally, right? So either be it you work on a file, you make changes, what all you are doing is locally. So it's not connected online at all, right? So for example, if you track your file for the past 3 years, 2 years, right? And you did not connect to any platform online. So for example, you didn't push your code online, you were doing everything was offline, right? But you were tracking it using it, right? Once that system crashes, right? Once that system crashes, trust me, everything has gone. Even though you use Git to track your folder, your files and everything that you've been doing, everything is going to go, right? So that's where GitHub comes in. So GitHub is now a platform that helps you to basically store and share your Git repositories online. All right. So just take a look at repositories as a folder that contains all your code base, right? So that's what repositories is called. And basically, you're going to see the term repo, or be saying the term repo very well. So when I say repo, it means repositories. And basically, repositories is just a place that a repo is just a folder that contains all your code base. So take a look at GitHub like a social media platform for developers to collaborate, right, and share code. All right. So that's one of the usefulness of GitHub, right? So GitHub just allows you to basically store your code online. All right. So it's like a social media platform that basically that is for developers, right? So just take a look at GitHub as a social media platform for developers, right? That allows you to collaborate and share code, right? So for example, if we take a look at Instagram, right? So you say Instagram is for content creators, right? And what do content creators use Instagram for, right? What do they use Instagram for? So basically, you would say that okay. So basically, you are going to say that content creators use Instagram to post their work, right? So for example, if they want to post a video or a picture that they went celebrating their vacation, they can go ahead to post that on Instagram, right? So for developers, if you write your code, right? I mean, some developers do post on social media platform like Instagram and all of that, but that's not a good way of keeping track of your code, right? All right. For GitHub, just take a look at it for developers for creating our own content, right? So what content are you creating now? What content are you posting? You are posting your code, right? So if you want to if you want to show hiring managers, or if you want to show people your social media platform as a developer, what they would ask for is GitHub, right? And I'm sure you guys would have heard of GitHub very well. So if you've heard of GitHub very well, or if you've heard of it from someone before, kindly drop yes in the comment section, because it's a very common term that is always used in the tech industry, right? So whenever somebody asks you, do you have a GitHub profile? Then what they're trying to see is they're trying to check your check whether you have done some work or some coding project before, right? And that's one of the great way of portraying the project that you work on, right? And what we're going to be doing in this course is we are going to be basically pushing our code as we are working, so that whenever we are done working, we track our changes using Git, right? We are also going to go ahead to push our code to GitHub, right? So just like doing double factor authentication, in case something happens to our system, maybe a system crash, or for some reason the system you are using is not yours, and you want to be working from different system, right? So what you can do is when you are done working on a system, you can push your code to GitHub, right? And once you push your code to GitHub, if you have the other system that you want to work with, you can just sign in and pull your code and continue working, right? So that's how sweet Git and GitHub is, all right? So what are the features of GitHub, right? So first is to host your project in cloud, right? So now, even if your system crashes or for some reason you lost the project on your system, basically everything is on cloud, right? So you can depend on GitHub to help us to keep our code very safe, right? So the next is it allows you to collaborate with team members, right? So for example, in an organization, you can have a front-end developer, a back-end developer, a data analyst, a data scientist, right? If they want to work on one project and they want to make sure that they're working in sync, right? So basically what the front-end developer is doing, what the back-end developer is doing, they need to connect, right? So a way of connecting is by what? By using GitHub. So that way they can push or pull each other code and have the changes that each person is working on, right? So the next one is the last feature here is it's also used to showcase your work to others. Like I mentioned earlier on, that when you are also building your resume, it's also very important to add your GitHub repository if asked for, right? And you might have heard this from your friend before, that an HR is basically going to ask for your GitHub profile to see how far you have been in the tech industry, right? So let me quickly do an example for you now, right? So I'm going to open my GitHub profile, right? So GitHub, right? So I'm going to open my GitHub profile and I'm going to show you what one of the major usefulness of GitHub, right? So I'm going to go to an incognito tab here, and if I come here, you can see that this is my GitHub profile here, right? So this is GitHub, and I'm still going to teach you guys how to install Git and how to install GitHub, right? I'll give you the process. So just make sure you follow along, right? So you can see that here, right, it's showing 2022, right? So basically, what is saying here is 2022. This was when this person started pushing his or her code to GitHub, right? So basically, once you share your GitHub profile to someone, they are going to be able to see everything you have been doing right from when you created your GitHub account, especially if you make your work public, right? So the project you've done publicly, recruiters are going to be able to scan through everything. You can see that this 2022, right? And I'm going to explain all these features here for you very soon, right? Everything that you have here, I'm going to explain. But just know that GitHub, but you can see 2022, if I go to the first one, first contribution ever, you'll see that the first commit ever here was what? Eniola Ademola, right? And what did this person do? That means this person created his account. So I created my account here. So basically, I'm going to run you through everything you're seeing here on GitHub in case it's your first time using GitHub, so you will get familiar with it. So don't worry, just chill out. I'm going to update you guys on it. All right. So you can see that basically I can see what I've done 2022, 2023, and 2024, and so on and so forth. Right. So this green mark, this green this green box you are seeing here means the person pushed a code to GitHub on that particular day, right? And you see that you see here we're having 20 contributions and so on. So let me just zoom my screen, right? So you guys can see it very well. All right. So you can see that here we're having 20 contributions. You can see here no contribution, right? So what it means is this particular day that is showing no contribution, the person did not push a code that day, or the person did not push any work on to GitHub that day, right? But here you can see 20 contribution. It means the person was able to perform 20 contributions on 24th of June 2023. All right. So in a nutshell, that's what GitHub is. But don't worry, I'm going to go ahead to explain it and also tell you guys how to sign up for GitHub. All right. So let's continue with our slides. Okay, so these are the three features of GitHub, and there are more also, right? But these are the three main features of GitHub, all right? So let's continue. And basically, these are the basic Git commands that we have, all right? So now there are a lot of Git commands. I mean, there are hundreds of Git commands, right? But we are just going to cover the few ones that you need to know to get started with Git, all right? So now, some people might say Git is a very complex topic that you should not get to start Git only if you have mastered coding very well and all of that, all right? But I would say no, because Git basically helps you to control what you are doing locally, and it saves you also in case you want to go back to the changes you made before, in case you want to push your code to GitHub and all of that. Basically, Git is going to be very important, all right? And that's why we're just going to cover the basics of Git. All right, so just the basic things that you need to know about Git. And furthermore, when we move on with the course outline, then we're going to dive into Git proper. All right. So the first command here is git init, right? So this command, you don't need to cram any of this command, right? Once you basically create a GitHub repository, you are going to see those commands there, and all you have to do is just to copy and paste, right? Copy, paste. Then that's it, right? Just know what those commands are used for. All right. So when I say git init, right, it means initialize a Git repository. All right. So let's say you are working in a particular folder, for example, all right, and you want to start using Git to track your code of what you are doing. All right. What you can do is you can just say git init. And once you say git init, it's going to start tracking all your work that you are doing. All right. So next is also we have git add then dot. All right. So what does this dot means? It means Git is telling Git to add all your files. So this dot means add all my files. So if you want to add a particular file only, you can just say git add, then the file name that you want to add. All right. So basically, once you do that, it's going to stage all changes for commits. Now, what does this mean? It means that once you can run this command, either git add a particular file or git add dot. So let me take it step by step now. So if I say, for example, git add readme.txt, right? So what it does is it's going to take that file and it's going to place it into a stage place that is ready to commit. All right. So what do I mean by this? Now, once you add that file, it's going to show like a green icon, right? If you're using VS Code and all of that. But basically, what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, this text.txt, the user has said that he wants to start tracking it. right? You want to start tracking it. So Git, be ready to take what the person wants to commit. All right. So now that txt file, I've added it already. So the next thing to do after adding that file is to now tell Git why you want to add the file, right? That's where this line comes in, right? Git commit dash m. So it means Git commit the file that I just added. It can be a file, it can be files, right? So Git commit the files that I just added. Dash m means type in a message, right? So the message is not going to be here, MSG. It means why do you want to commit this file, right? So I can say git commit dash m, and why I'm adding that file readme.txt is I'll just say add a file for readme. That can be my message. And what it does is, okay, Git is not going to go ahead to save those changes that you now add, right? So if you are following me in the comment section, kindly go ahead to give it this video a thumbs up. So just drop a thumb emoji so I can know you guys are following me. All right. So that's what git commit dash m means. All right. So the next basic command is also git clone repo then URL. Right. This is to clone a repository. So if you want to clone a repository, this is how you're going to do. So what it means is, for example, if you want to take somebody else's code, right? If you want to take someone else's code that the person have worked on before on GitHub, and you want to clone it, you want to have a copy of it locally, what you can do is you're going to say git clone, then the URL that you want to clone. And don't worry, we're going to do all of these examples, right, when we start our course of creating our first and pushing our code using Git and GitHub. All right. So now the next command here is git push, right? Okay, very good. I can see you guys are following me. Rafael, Aziz, Chidima. All right, very good. So now we also have git push, and basically what git push does is it goes ahead to push your file from your local base to GitHub, right? Don't forget, Git controls your file locally while GitHub controls your file what's in the cloud. So that's what git push means. Now, we also have git pull. So let me just go ahead to hide my face here so you can see it very well, right? So you can see git push means upload changes to GitHub, right? And git pull means download changes from GitHub, right? So for example, if you are working in a particular company, right, and your team member, right, push his or her code to GitHub, and basically you want the updated version of what the company project is working on, or what the company is working on, right? So what you can do is you can pull those changes from GitHub. All right. So you say, okay, whatever updates that my fellow developer or whatever updates that my tutor made to the repository, I want to have those changes locally also. Then if you want to have those changes, you're going to pull it. You're going to pull those changes. All right. So these are the basic commands that you need to know as a beginner. I mean, there are also different commands there. We have git branch, how to make a branch, how to start your changes and all of that. But don't worry about all of that right now. What you should focus on is focus on the basics of git's commands, right? So these are the basic things that you need to know about git. All right. So next is, how do they work, right? So how do Git and GitHub works, right? How do they work? How do they work together? How do Taya and Ken they work together? All right. So it's very important to also know that so that we can know what we are basically working with. All right. So Git manages your project locally on your computer. I've mentioned that over and over again, right? So once you make a change on your local system, Git is going to help you to manage that project locally, right? While GitHub helps you to store your project online so that others can access it, right? And also so that you can have a copy of what you are working on locally, you can have a copy of it in the cloud, right? Online, right? Just for example, if you create a video, right? A TikTok video, an Instagram video, all of that, and you don't post it on Instagram, you don't post it on TikTok, what's going to happen when your phone spoils? All your videos that you know upload to your Google Drive, or you know upload to TikTok, or you know upload to Instagram, everything is going to go, right? Even though you did the video, all right? and that's how you are going to be if you're just using Git without GitHub, right? But if you now push your video to Instagram, to TikTok, if you now take your code from your local base that you've tracked with Git and you upload it on GitHub, right? Then your project is going to be safe online. So even if your laptop crashes, or for example, you don't have access to that particular laptop that you worked on, you can use another system to actually continue your work since you already have your code base online. All right. So this is what we're going to cover in our next class, right? So we're going to create a project folder. So we'll look at how to create a project folder. We'll look at how to use Git to track changes. That's what we're going to look at next. And we are going to also look at how to push the project to GitHub to share it. All right. So that is the basic things that we're going to look at next. And tomorrow, just make sure that you are ready to do all of that. But before we start that tomorrow, there are some other things that we need to also do before we start doing all of that. Okay. So tomorrow we're going to look at how to um, commit changes, how to push to GitHub, and how to do some basic commands using Git and GitHub also, right? But before tomorrow's class, what I want you to do is we have to have those tools set up, right? So we have to download Git, and we also have to create create an account for GitHub, right? So the first thing first is downloading Git. All right. So if you want to download Git, just make sure to check the link in the description box. You are going to see a video on how to download Git. If you want a step-by-step video on how to download Git, you can watch that video, right? That video has everything well explained for you, right? But if you just want to install it by yourself, what you can do is you can quickly search for. So let me just do it together with you guys. So yeah, just open a new tab and search for Git download, right? So once you search for Git download, you'll see something like this. All right. So once you click on this Git download, so it's going to bring you here. You can see it's going to bring you here, right? And basically what we have here is you have for Mac OS, for Windows, and for Linux. All right. So you can watch that video to have a detailed step on how to install Git, but you have to click on this Windows. Right. So once you click on this Windows icon, it's going to bring you here. You can see same directory, right? So basically, you can go ahead to download whatever type of system you are using. So you might be using 64-bit, you might be using 32-bit, or all of that. You have to know your system spec very well before you download Git. All right. But the most popular version is Git for 64 portable, right? This is the most standard version that people use, right? And if you want to download Git for Mac OS, is pretty much simple. You just have to run this command, brew install Git, right? Because Mac OS comes with some downloads already, all right? So you don't need to run through all those process of installing Git and all of that one by one. Just run from a command line, and it's going to work fine, all right? So I expect you guys to do this before our next class. And the last thing that you also have to do is to create an account, right? And to create an account in GitHub, all you have to do is to go to get this particular link. So the link is also in the comment section. What you can do is you have to click on that link, right? Then input your email, right? Input your email, input your password, all right? And input your username, right? So this username is basically what is going to be shown on your GitHub. So for example, whenever you want to access your GitHub profile, it's going to be github.com/, you can see this username here, Eniola Ademola, right? So that would be your username. So you have to make sure you choose a good username that you're going to be using throughout. All right. So after you create a username, then you select your country, accept, and all of that. So once you do this, GitHub is going to send you an email, right, that you've created an account successfully. And once you are done creating an account, I want you to go ahead to drop your account that you created on the community platform. All right. So if you are done creating the account, what you can do is just come to your GitHub account. It will take you here, somewhere like overview. Copy the link and drop it on the community platform so that I can know that you've created the link, you've created your GitHub account. All right. So that will be all for today's class. You can see today's class is very pretty simple and straightforward. Basically, what we've learned now is we already know what Git is. We know why we really need Git, right? We've also looked at what GitHub is, because GitHub is something that helps us to actually store our code in the cloud. All right. So, and I've also told you guys how to download Git. So make sure to download Git and download GitHub so that you can follow up with the class we are going to be doing, so that you can follow up with the next course video we're going to have tomorrow. All right. So that will be all for today. And if you have any question, please do well to uh, comment. All right, I'm here to reply you. All right. Also in the community platform, if you have any question, do well to reach out to us, and we are happily going to reply you all. So that'll be all for today's class. I hope you learned a lot. It was very pretty simple and straightforward, but it's really going to help you in our next course. So that'll be all for today, and I'll see you in the next class. Bye.